Okay, so we left off for the two dots on base on the base. Two dots, probably about 15 lines up from the bottom. So we get into again this whole figure that we're discussing is discussing splitting up properties. So we're gonna have some interesting shilas about Yerusha. Yeah. So again, two dots around 15 lines up from the bottom. So Rav Huna Breda Rav Yeshua said, Pshita, Chelek Bechor Bechelek Pashat. If you have the Chelek of Bechor and the Chelek of Pashat, right? Meaning, what do you call it? You have Bechor is the oldest, he gets double, and you have a Pashat who's a regular son who doesn't get double. So you give him from one border. Meaning normally when you split up property as a Yerusha, so each person gets a property. Right? And you try and keep everybody's, you don't split it where one guy gets a little bit here and a little bit there, a little bit there. Each person gets a substantial amount. So this Bechor, his two chalakim are going to be next to each other. They're not going to separate them. So that the Gemara says is Pasha. But what about a Yavam? Yavam might. So the Yavam, so this Bechor dies. So what's going to be with the Yavam? Yavam Yarshins that brother. Besides that he has to marry the sister-in-law, he also gets the Yerusha. So what about him? Samarabaya, it's the same thing, and he also gets the fields next to each other, the double fields. My time a Bechor, Kayirachmana. The Torah calls him a Bechor. Right? Rava Amar Krav, Ahaya Bechor. It says the Bechor will be Haviyasa Kibechor and Chalukasa Kibechor. He is like a Bechor, but his Chalukah is not like a Bechor. So even though he is like a Bechor, because the pasuk says he's like a Bechor, because he's taking over the Bechor and marrying the Bechor's wife. However, he doesn't split the Yerusha like a Bechor. Fine. Ahu the Zavan Ara Amitzu the Bay Nashye. So now we get into a few Kaipan Amida Stones business here. So you have a guy that bought land along the property of his father. Now, some say it's the property of his father. The Masaras Hashas brings that it's the property of his in-laws. Okay, whichever it is, he owns property next to his father, and then his father dies. Right? So he's going to want to yarshin the property next to his. Right? Because why not? Why shouldn't he have continuous property? So Kika Paldo. So when they're splitting up the land, Amarle Pluguli Amitzrai, give me my portion on my border. Rabba said, if the brothers don't want to do it, we do what we call Kaifin Amidas Daim, and we make them give him the property next to his. Why shouldn't we let them have the property next to his? Right? Meaning it would be midas time for a brother not to. Right?
We saw that if there's the property that's next to yours, you have kedima over it. So why shouldn't why that should also be put out of the equation? No. I mean, the fact that he has the Yerusha a little bit, but it's a property right next to you. You should have a first dibs to buy it. No,
he's not buying it.
But it's not.
I know he's not buying it, but I'm just saying that's a natia to say that he should have that he should have.
No, in the sugi of Ametzer we learn bedavka mechira, not a matana, not Yerusha.
See, behold, the Indian of splitting up Yerusha is a din of lakuch. It's like being a cat. Wouldn't that be pashut also? Forget about tenan of Ezra. Wouldn't that come inside the din and did it to my restaurant?
I think that's what Rachman is saying.
No, right. I'm saying if you hold it, Yerusha's mitzad the din of Lakucha, so then Racham's correct. Then according to the there's a child if Yerusha is like that, but according to that tzad for sure, forget about the din of Stein. Mitzad a din, you're a lekeach.
Mitzad a din.
You have a din of Dvar at that point.
But I don't know. Is that do we look at Yerusha like that?
It's a shaila if we look at Yerusha like that. But according to that tzad, the chayr, this is mitzad, not mitzad din of Stein. You have a din to it of al din of Dvar Metzra.
Is that what Tysus is asking?
I see Tysus
going. No, he's not. I think he's asking somebody else. Yeah, but anyways, okay. So, but that's what he's saying. Be this time. But Master Yosef had a kasha. Amri lay, achi. But what his brother could say to him, Malilon lay iluya. It has a big milo to us. Your property has a big milo to us. Like the nechasim of Bar Merion. Bar Merion was a wealthy person. We had Bar Merion a few brought ago, right? Right. So benegay to the tzedakah. So Bar Merion said, we want their land. Yeah. So Rashi says that this land is it survives on rainwater. Yeah. And they say, listen, your land might have the mazel over our land, so maybe we want that land. Which again, I don't understand what that means, because so then the other lands might have mazel. Meaning they don't know, they're just gambling. They're just gambling on what they want, what they don't want. But either way, they can say we like this land. Right? The Hilchos of Rav Yosef and the halachos like Rav Yosef that they don't have to give him the land. Fine. Trey Arata. Trey Arata, Trey Nagri. You have two lands with two streams going through it that will irrigate the lands. Amar Rabba in this case, it's for sure going to be kaifin on this time, because each brother will have a way to get irrigation. Meaning, in the first case, it was solely fed by rain, so the brothers can tie, hey, you're going to mess us up because maybe you'll get better rain than us, whatever that means, right? But here, when each one of them has a way to irrigate their fields, then it shouldn't be a problem, right? Fine. Then the maskal of Yosef, zimnin dahai matu v'hadlon matu. But maybe sometimes this one you can take water out of, and this one you can't. Meaning, how do you know which stream is not going to dry up? So the hilchos of Rav Yosef and halacha is like Rav Yosef, that they don't have to. There is no midas time here. I can't say. I can't say. I can't say understand. Okay, but that's what it is. Yeah. So this next one though, tarti achad nagra. Let's say both fields only have one stream that irrigates it. Right? It's really the Bach sticks in the word arata. Tarti aracha achad nagra. Some of Yosef going zeh koven on midas time. This is for sure on midas time. Right? Meaning it's going to be one. In this case, it's one stream providing irrigation. If it dries up, it's going to dry up. It's going to dry up for both, so they have no taina. It's a maskal abayim. Motzi amar be'ina da'afta sharisi. I want you to add in workers, add in sharecroppers. Meaning, he's saying if my field, the one brother says I want the field next to my field, and the other brother says no, I'd rather take that field, and you take the field further, so that I'm squeezed in between your two fields. In which case, since you're going to want to make sure that you take care of your borders, you're going to end up hiring more workers because your fields are not together; they're separated, and then I'm going to benefit from that. All right. So the hilchasa Rav Yosef, the halacha here is like Rav Yosef. Afushila milsi, because saying that you want more workers is nothing, and it's kaifan al midas time. So it's interesting. Sounds like it's always kaifan al midas time. We paskin kaifan al midas time. The question is, do we believe this other brother's taina enough to say that it's not midas time? He has a valid reason why he wants to have this particular field. Okay, on Talmud Aleph. Here, I have to say that this, initially, when you look at this chart in Rashi, it's pretty intimidating. It almost looks like you'd rather learn Yavamis. And then it comes out really that it's pretty easy. It's really pretty easy. So Chad Gisa Nagra, Chad Gisa Nara. So basically what you do is you have on one side, on the east side, let's see the way Rashi says it, there's a river going on the east side of the land, and there's a stream going on the north. So on the northeast, right? Look, if there's I don't know how new a Rashi the Olam has, but it's you see the Rashi has on the east it's a river, and on the north it's a stream. So now if you split it up incorrectly, one guy might end up getting the entire stream, and one guy might end up getting just the river, and the other one will get the river. So basically, we want everybody to do it, everybody to be okay. So basically, we split it like a pizza pie. We split a square into a pizza pie, and each one gets a quarter of a slice. Not a quarter of, meaning each one gets 2 slices from each corner of the thing. All right, so northeast they split, southeast they split, northwest they split, and southwest they split. And like this, each one gets a little half of the river, and each one gets half of the stream. Pretty straightforward. So picking up a
Jacob, I posted pretty decent pictures today.
Oh, I didn't see it. Yeah, okay, good. But Rashi, at least in my Rashi, pretty good picture. So, Palgalo, okay, we'll check it out. Palgalo.
Tiago, I can't imagine Eric working on a field like this is fun though. Like I understand that they want to get the river and the the irrigation canal, but this looks really annoying to have to start, when you chop it up like this, to have to start running your hoe over it and to plow it like this. It looks ridiculous.
No, it doesn't make sense. Like, doesn't sound like it makes sense monetarily.
Right, you're gonna have to keep running from one field to another to work your field. Unless there's some shutvus in terms of the actual working of the field. Didn't we discuss earlier the idea of having to move your workers around is not fun either?
What?
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, it's like you guys the 2 guys couldn't make enough peace to split it up any better way that they
There's no way to do it.
No, this is the best way to split it up to get the benefits of the
need
river irrigation canal. I'm just saying there are other things that make it harder, which is working the field. We had discussed earlier, working the field could be a problem also. In terms of plowing it 1 day or 2 days. If you do it this way, the working of the field becomes very difficult.
Says the farmer.
I'm basing it on the prior Gemara. To have to plow a field like this looks insane.
It's still even for both of them.
No, I know that, but it's evenly annoying. I'm just saying,
True.
I guess if they don't agree on something, I agree. But
if they want to agree on something else, they're more than welcome to. This is if they don't agree. This is the standard.
Most property is not round and is not square. I think Rashi's giving us a hekatimsa that you see everybody can have a chelik. That's fair, but in actuality, you'd have to split it up in a way that it makes everybody happy, but doesn't mean everybody doesn't get a square.
I don't know if it's practical rabbinics. What I'm thinking is that they split it, right? And then they realize, okay, you know what? then they buy it off each other and they start wheeling and dealing. You know what I mean, sort of like Monopoly. You give out all the cards or whatever. You got the cards. Now we start the wheeling and dealing, and then they'll realize one guy will say, "I'll pay you more money because I'll pay you because I want the river." I don't know, but I mean that's the only way to split it in an even way, right? Okay, as long as we understand. As long as you understand it, when you initially look at it, like when I first looked at it, I was like, "Forget this, man. There's no way." So, all right, I still don't know if I understand it well, but I think I do, so that's good enough too. Okay, this is a major sugya. Good or good, I had like Akiva's voice in my head saying, "Good or good."
Yeah, very unclear, Tzviako.
Jeremy needs to mute. Jeremy needs to mute.
Still unclear?
No, now you're good. Now you're good.
Okay. Because there's a guy talking in the loudspeaker behind me. Maybe that's the issue.
That is not the issue.
Okay. All right. It's not your son, David. Don't worry. Yeah. So good or good, right? Good or good is a sugya. Right? Let's see what this means. So ein behen. We said so. There's a whole list. The Mishnah goes through a whole list of things that you can't split properly. Right. So you can't split it properly. So therefore, you don't split it. So ein ben kidei lezeh I mean, it goes through that. The Mishnah goes through what the minimum amounts. We learned that in yesterday's stuff. Like for a what we'd say for a garden, it has to be 3 kav, etc. So meaning each one has to be able to come out with a substantial enough amount of land or produce or whatever it is, right? So let's say ein by kidei lezeh mao. So then what do? Bottom line is one of the partners wants out, and they're not going to end up splitting it. They're not going to, and they're not allowed to split it. So what's the eitzah? So Yehuda Amar is dina the good or good. It has the din of good or good. Now the way I understand this in a practical way, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is called like sort of, it's not really a hostile takeover, but it's something like that, which is basically one guy tells the other guy, listen, either I buy you out or you buy me out, right? Jeremy, is there a name for that in finance? Is there a name?
It's a buy-sell agreement.
Like either it's a what?
A buy-sell agreement.
Oh, it's called a buy-sell agreement. Okay, so there you go. That's a buy-sell agreement. So meaning that's what good or good means. There's a different mafarshim how you explain the good. So, but that's what he's saying. Either you buy me or I buy you out. The Taisa says the shaila is at what price? At what price? So Taisa in Isdina the good or good says even if you say a lot of money, way more than it's worth, and then you could tell him, meaning, can you force this sale by telling the guy, this land is really worth $1,000. I'm going to give you $10,000. Either you take it, meaning either I'll give you 10 and you give me the land, or you give me 10, right? And I'll give you the land, and which could really force the guy's hand, right? You could really force the guy's hand out there, right? So, but that Taisa seems to say you could do that. Taisa seems to say you could do that, right? So, but that's Shita says. So, Rabbi Yehuda says you can do this business. You could say, what do you call it, a buy or sell agreement? You could say, listen, I'm in or I'm out, and you're in or you're out, and finished. Rav Nachman says no. Less dina the good or good. You cannot do this. You can't do this, and it's just not splittable. So then the Gemara says, less dina the good or good. So according to Rav Nachman, who says there's no din of good or agud, bechar upashut. So if you have a bechar, again, like we had on the previous summit, a bechar and a pashut. A pashut means just a
What is the translation of good or good? Tie and under.
There's two different ways of understanding it. It's good, like from good asik, which means it goes up or goes down. Well, it goes down, meaning it extends it. You're extending it, or it means to cut it, or to make a set amount. Meaning we're basically trying to finalize a deal. It's just a matter of how we're going to do it, right? I mean, how we're
It's
going
like for, I think it's from the word agadata is to draw. To draw, it's like Moshe, people's slave, the Gemara says, so that's what good and agad comes from that word. Like what you're saying.
You mean I got it to? I didn't even think of that. I got it to that. That's like.
No, I think it's I think it's the same shirish, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
To draw, because good asik is you draw up.
But that's right.
You draw the line up.
Right, so that's one shot. The other shot is that it's like it's set, basically a set price. So anyway, so he said according to Rav Nachman, Rava says to Rav Nachman, according to you, that we don't say this. So if you have a bechor, you have two kids, a bechor and a regular kid, and they yarshin shanich lehen an eved ubehema tameya, and the father left them an eved and a treifa animal. So if it's a kosher animal, you shecht it and split the animal, no problem. But you can't do that with a treifa animal, obviously. So you're going to have to just use it for work. So now, and an eved, the same thing. You can't split an eved. So what are you going to do? You have to use it for work. So according to you, you can't. We're not allowed to split it because we said that fits into the rules of the Mishnah. You're not allowed to split something that each person is not going to be considered like they have something substantial enough, right? So a left arm of an eved and a right arm of an eved is not considered.
Why don't you just breed the eved or breed the behemoth? Yeah.
We'll get to that. That'll be the next Gemara. That'll be the next Gemara. But even so, it's who gets what, right? So anyway, so you can't split it that way, and then one side can't force out the other side. So what do you do with this Yerusha? So Ketzad Oisen, what do you do? Amalei, he said to him, Shani Yomer, Obed Lazeh Yom Echad, Belazeh Shnei Yom. He works for this one 2 days, and he works for this one day. Meaning again, because the Bechor gets double. So what's he going to do? The Bechor gets him for 2 days, and the regular son gets him for 1 day. That meaning the treifa animal and the eved. So Tosfos discusses why can it be just a case of two brothers trying to split a Yerusha? Why does it have to be a bechor? Right. So Tosfos is saying that Tosfos says that by a bechor.
Tiago, because us the bechors, we make things complicated.
That's true. That is true. Yes, but.
I think Rashi also asked the question.
Well, Rashi says, Rashi said Rashi doesn't spend as much time on this as Tosfos does. Rashi just says Pashut it's a tircha. It's a tircha to be a shutta. Which even though Rav Nachman says, so what? He doesn't care about the tircha. Tosfos says something interesting, that the Bechor, Aaron Kaplan, the Bechor can scam the non-Bechor. Because if it's a 2-dayer, if he gets it for 2 days, so he could send the guy on a business trip and wipe him silly for the 2-day business trip. Meaning if you only get him for 1 day, there's not much you could do with that ever. He could work for you that day, that's it. The guy, the Bechor that gets him for 2 days, can utilize this guy for 2 days, send him on a trip, and then really it ends up costing the regular son. So therefore Tosfos says that that's why it makes it more complicated to pick that example. Okay, so then Meisveh, the Gemara asks a kasha, Misha Chetzi Ever Chetzi Ben Chayrin. Anybody who's familiar with Minchas Chinuch, this is the Minchas Chinuch's go-to case. So you have a Chetzi Ever Chetzi Ben Chayrin. What does that mean? Meaning two people owned the slave, and one of them freed him. So this guy's in no man's land. So what do? He works for his master 1 day, and he works for himself the other day. That's Shita's space. That's very nice that you fixed his master, because his master gets him for half the time, which he got anyways. But you weren't besaking him. Why? Because Lisa shivcha in a yochel. He can't get married to a shivcha because he's half free. Lisa baschayer in a yochel. He can't marry a free woman. Because he's an eved. So yivato. So okay. So he won't get married. The world was only created for true devotion. Hashem didn't make the world in order to be empty. Right? Ella. So now meaning, so what is this eved supposed to do? So Ella, we force the master to make him free, to free him. And he write a star on for half his money. Right? Meaning the point is that we don't make him free. Why should the master, because one partner freed him, why should the other master, the owner, lose out that he has to free his slave? So he frees him, but the slave has to pay for himself. He has to pay for himself, right? The Chazru Beis Hillel Laharis Gidur Beis Shammai, and the Maisa Beis Hillel like Beis Shammai's Eitzah. So Beis Hillel changed his mind and went like Beis Shammai. Yeah, we had this Gemara many times, right? So what's the kasha? So point is nowhere here did anybody suggest that you force the guy to free. Meaning that one partner cannot force the other guy to do into anything, right? Meaning if it wouldn't be for, meaning the point would be if it wouldn't be for this mitzvah pru revu, we would not be able to force the other guy to free the slave. Why not? So Shani Sigmara answers, Shani Hacha da agud ika good lekker. Here you don't have a case of good and agud, right? Because you don't have
as a goy, he has a mitzvah of piravu.
So Taisus discusses that. Well, really an Evid. Taisus actually is a quite. I mean, I know we don't like to do Taisus on these stuff, but Taisus actually has a couple of very interesting, right? I mean, why it didn't bring. Why didn't the pasuk? Taisus asks, why didn't the pasuk why didn't the Gemara bring the pasuk of Prudavu? It brought the pasuk of Leisayu Bara. It didn't bring the pasuk of Prudavu, right? Because that's the point. Lasheves Yitzara applies to Avadim, but Prudavu may not. That's one kasha of Taisus. Taisus also asks, you should have the mitzvah to say of Prudavu and be doichad alois to say of don't marry an Eved. If you talk a hold of there's a mitzvah to be an say doichad alois to say. Right? Okay, so then the ayin Taisus to go that. But either way, what the Gemara is saying is that in order to have a good or good, meaning to have this buy-sell agreement, there has to be equal ways to go back and forth. It has to be a two-way street with the deal. Meaning one has to have the ability to buy, and meaning both have to have the ability to buy, and both have to have the ability to sell. Here that's not the case, right? Because the guy, you're not allowed to become an Eved. So there's no option here for the guy who made the Eved free or for the Eved himself to make himself back into an Eved, because that's awesome. So since it's not a two-way street, so Mamela, it's you can't say good or good. Fine, another kasha, Toshima. Another kasha of Yehuda. If you have two brothers, Echad Ani, Vechad Asher. You have one that's an Ani and one is an Asher. One is wealthy, one is rich. The father gave them as a Yerusha a merchatz and a beis habad, an olive press, which can't be split. So a son l'scharas halaemtza. If they're there for business purposes, so then they split the profit down the middle. A son la'atzmai, but if he does it for himself, meaning it's his own private merchatz and it's his own private. What do you call it? Olive press. All right. So which I don't understand. So what? So the father did it that way. Why can't they turn? I was just thinking that there hasn't been any announcements. Right. Yeah. Why can't they make it as a business? Just because the father had his own private press and his own private methods, they can't do it as a business? They can't turn it into a business? Okay, whatever. I don't know. It's about the Shakasha, but I don't understand.
You want to ask them to join together and make a partnership. They barely know how to separate these things. Now you want them to be partners?
Well, that's the problem. They don't know. Well, if they maybe that will be the answer. You get a, how do you call it, a third party to run it, and they just splits the profit. Can we say that?
How do you turn your personal shower into a business?
You ever heard of swim? What is it called? Swimply? Swimply?
Yeah, Swimply.
So Swimply does it. You rent your pool.
Yeah, pool, not a shower.
The Yid can, Yid having the eight, Yid can still figure out a way to make $1 off a shower. I'm sure. You're the only guy with the shower in town. I'm sure you can make a buck off it.
Gershon, I've rented showers before. You rent shower trailers.
Yeah, and those are
No, but Gershon, it says if it's meant for business, so then they should split the business. Right? So that means we're talking about a shower that has the ability, I think, unless you say it's talking about two different types of
no,
showers.
it's two different things.
I didn't think so. I thought it's
Why? Why is it two different things? It's got to be talking about the same thing.
Why? They're both called the Beis Merchat in Hebrew. A shower and a bathing and a pool are called the Beis Merchat.
I don't know. I don't know. You please. Okay, I don't know what Gershon's trying to say. It's okay.
That's what the word asan means, no? If they were made.
What?
The creation of these things was for business means it's a different kind of thing. If it was creation was personal, then it's
Tais is mashma like that. Tais is on the upper base is mashma like that. The second one, you must on the sky.
Yeah, okay, let's get Talmud base. Either way, so he's saying if they did it for themselves, meaning if the father had it for themselves, Ashir Aimer Lani, then the wealthy guy could tell the Ani on Talmud base now. Buy yourself slaves, right? And meaning to work the merchats for you, and then you'll use it. And buy yourself olives, and you could use the Beis Habad. All right. So, meaning, why didn't he just do the forced buyout or the buy-sell agreement or something like that? Why doesn't Gemara suggest that? Elamai sounds like you can't do it. Kashan Rav Yehuda. Gemara answers, Asamnami, good ika, agud leka. There you have the same thing. It's good. You only have good. You don't have agud. Because he's so poor that he doesn't have the option. He does not have the option to do it, which, again, something I don't understand because let him borrow the money. Meaning, Bishlam in the previous case with the Eved, it wasn't possible halachically to do it. Here, because you're an Ani, I don't know, maybe he'll win the lottery. Maybe he'll win the lottery tomorrow. Who knows? Right? So I don't know. Yeah, fine. So Tashima, I see what you're saying, Akiva, with the Tosis. Yeah. Okay, Tashima. Now, Kashan Rab Nachman, Kol Sheilu Yechlaik Shemaya Lov Cholkim. Right? The Mishnah says that if they would split the thing and each one would retain its name, meaning if you have a large bathhouse and they split the bathhouse down the middle and each one will be able to say, I have a bathhouse, fine. But if it's one shower, each one says, I have a half a shower, that doesn't work. You can't split that. So, Imlav, Mailan Oisa Bedamim. And if not, then you give him money. That seems to be a Beferish Brisa, like Rabbi Yehuda, that you could do good or good. Right? How else? What else does it mean that one guy buys out the other one? So the answer is Tanoi. It's actually Machlokes Tanoi. Whether we could say that one partner can buy out the other partner when it's not splittable is a Machlokes Tanoi. The Tanya learned that a Brisa told out the shear. If one guy told the other guy, you take the shear, meaning let's go with the 8 amas, right? A field has to be 8 amas by 4 amas. And really it's only 8 amas by 3 amas. So one partner tells the other partner, you take 4 amas and I'll take less. Right? So do we listen or not? So Shaimin Loi. So the Tanakhama says we listen to him. Yeah. Rav Shimon Gamliel ain't Shaimin Loi. We don't listen to him. So Gemara asks again, that's a basic case. One of them says one of them says, I'll take less. So can you do that? So the Gemara says, hey, and so it's a machlokes tana. The Gemara says, hey, my time is Rav Shimon Gamliel. If it's like we said, what's the reason for Shimon Gamliel? Meaning, if they both agree to it, why can't they do that? Elalav, because there's something missing from this Raisa. Yeah, if he says you take a shear and I'll take less, we could listen to him. But good or good nami and if he says this deal, this buy-sell agreement, we also listen to him. And Rav Shimon Gamliel says, on good or good, we don't listen to him. In the first case, we do listen to him. By good or good, we don't listen to him. So that you see it's a machlokes tanoim. And the one says, really, it's the way we said it. But the current my time the Rav Shimon Gamliel, and this day you asked, why does Rav Shimon Gamliel disagree if they both make some sort of agreement? Because he could tell him, dummy, if it's money, less dummy if you're saying to me that I can buy you out, well, I'm sorry, I don't have money. And matana, and if you're going to say that, okay, you're going to give me, you want to just get out of this partnership. So you said, okay, I'll just give you a larger portion. I don't want that. Pasuk says that if you hate matanas, then you'll live. I'm not interested in a freebie and a handout. So therefore, there's no splitting that way. So that's why Rav Shimon Gamliel would say that. So it's unclear now. Is it a machlokes tanoim or is it not a machlokes tanoim? Some say it is. Some say the machlokes tanoim is retained, and some say that it's not. Okay. So Amar le Abai Rav Yosef, Other Rav Yehuda, the Shmuel. He says really Shitas Rav Yehuda it's really Shmuel. The Tanakh, because we learned in the Mishnah of Kisvei HaKodesh, right? We learned in our Mishnah Kisvei HaKodesh, meaning a Sefer Torah, let's say, or a Nach. Even if they both want to split it down the middle, they can't split it. Shmuel said, that's only if it's one volume that they want to split. But if it's two different volumes, then they are allowed to split it. Meaning, let's say they have, we're going to see from this Gemara, we're going to get into all sorts of dinam of Sifrei Torah and Sifrei Nach. But let's say he has a Nevi'im and a Ksuvim in separate in separate volumes, let's call it, that they're allowed to split. And if you think that there's no din of good and agud, my area b'krach echad. Why are you saying eat with krach echad? Even in two volumes, it's also not allowed. Right? Even in two volumes, it's also not allowed because you're not. If you hold it, you're not allowed to do this good or agud. So how are they splitting two sifrei Torah or whatever, two svarim? You're not allowed to split. You're not allowed to do a good or yogurt, right? Which again, I don't understand the Havamina because Tirgum Rav Salman Bishashnein writes it. No, he's not talking about a good or yogurt situation. Somewhere where they both want it. They're both very happy. Each one's very happy to take their own sefer. Therefore, it's not a problem. Fine. Amar Ameimar. Amar Ameimar Hilchasa is Dina the good or yogurt. Ameimar says we paskin that we say good or yogurt. Amar le Ravashi Lameimar Hadar Rav Nachman Mai. But what are you doing with Rav Nachman? How are you paskening like that? Right? How are you paskening like Rav Yehuda? What about Rav Nachman? Amar le Shmiyali, Klaimer le Svivali. Says I never heard Rav Nachman, which Gemara says doesn't mean that he never heard. It means he didn't hear him. Right? Like sometimes we say over here, we say I hear you. Right? So this is saying that doesn't mean I hear you. It means I hear what you're saying and I agree with it, right? Or at least partially agree with it. So that's what he says here. I never heard, meaning I never listened. I heard it, but I never internalized it. Let's call it that. So I want to ask Eloi, and it doesn't. Do we not pass like Rav Nachman that you can't do this buy sell agreement? Or Rava. I'm sorry, Rabba Barchin, so they were both brothers. The father left them two female slaves. One of them knew how to bake and to cook. So Rashi has two pshatim, pilcha v'navla. Either know how to sew and weave, or to know how to make chairs and stuff like that. So what are you going to do with these two? Meaning two women who have total different talents. So how do they go about splitting this? We do not hold of this good or good, and you cannot force, either one cannot force the other one to take. So the Gemara says, Shani Hasam. There it's meaning, so you see that we paskin, we don't hold good or good. And yet Rav Ashi, Rameimar said we do. So we ask Shani Hasa, the Rabbeinu Gershom answers your Kasha Gershom, which would be like, what are you asking me Kasha from one Amara to another? Right? So that Rabbeinu Gershom discusses. Either way, Shani Hasa, the Lamar Bibayli Tavar, Lamar Bibayli Tavar. It wasn't shot that each one wanted one slave. They both wanted both slaves. So then if one would say you take one and I'll take the other one, that's not a case of good ayogud. Good ayogud is one takes everything, or the other one takes everything, and the other side pays. Right? So that's but that's not the case here. So therefore, it's not a kasha. The Gemara says, they both wanted it, meaning they both wanted both svarim. Right, and Shmuel said it that it's only by one bond, by two bond they are allowed to split it. So how come here, by two svarim they're allowed to split it, and how come by two maids or servants, whatever you want to call them, you don't split it? So hard to go on Rav Shalman Bisharatsu. One is somewhere where they actually want. If they both want and they both agree to split it, then there's no question. Okay, so that's basically the sugya of good ayogud. Now we get into the sugya, and it's going to last us for a good blot, half two blot. We're back into Shtikal Agadata. Yeah, about Sifrei Torah. So Tana will start it now. Tana Rabban. A person can make a Tanakh. Right, we have that. We have Tanakh with Svarim. Yeah, a person can connect it all together. Divrei Remeir, that's Shitas Remeir. Yudaimer, Torah b'fnei atzma, Neviim b'fnei atzma, and you have to make separate ones for each. Separate Torah, separate Neviim, separate Ksuvim. You need to have everything by itself. Right? Meaning,
what's it? You can't make a printed safer of everything together, or talking about the cloth.
No, we're talking about cloth.
We're talking about cloth.
Whether that translates into svarim together is a different story. But right now we're talking about cloth. Yes.
We're talking about one big thing that you know
right.
everything.
It would mean the lachayra would mean the same thing in regular svarim too. So there's a couple of important taisus in here. Taisus says, how can you put it all into one volume? Doesn't that mean then again this is talking about whether it's a cloth? Isn't it going to end up being that the Nevi'im and Ksuvim are on top of the Torah? Because the Torah would go first, and then you roll Nevi'im on top of it, and then Ksuvim. How can you do that? So Taisu says, when it's in one volume, then it's okay. Right? That's why people that have you have a siddur, so in the back of the siddur is the laning. How can you have the laning in the back of the siddur? Right? That means the siddur sitting on top of Torah. That's not allowed. So the answer is, it is allowed because it's part of one. It's part of one volume. In one volume, we don't have this issue of what's on top of the other. Right? Fine. And then what was the other toises? The other toises was, that it doesn't mean that the Torah has to be in separate. The Nevi'im and the Ksubim have to be in separate volumes. Because if not, then we're going to think that it was all written by one person. Yeah. Anyways, so this three-way machlokes is whether you're allowed to make one volume or not. So Vamar Rav Yehuda Ma'aser would beat this Ben Zainin. The story beat the Ben Zainin show you like Shemainu Nevi'im, B'Vakum Ke'echad. He had the 8 Nevi'im. There are 8 Nevi'im, which we'll see in tomorrow's Daf Bez Hashem. There's 8 Nevi'im. He had them all in one volume. Al Pi Rav Eliezer ben Azariah, and this was Rav Eliezer ben Azariah told him to do that. The Yesharim, Lo Hayu Lo Ela Echad B'Fnei Atzma. He had each one in a separate volume. Amar Rebbe, Ma'aser Levi'u L'Fneinu Torah Nevi'im Ksubim B'Vakum Ke'echad V'Chshurinum. They brought us Torah Nevi'im Ksubim in one volume, and we made it kosher. Okay, we'll stop over here. I don't have to go down there. All right. Let's say Okay, Yud Gimel.